As I was driving home yesterday from work, I just started thinking a lot about this whole fact that Drake is in some kind of conflict, that he has been attacking online another one of his employers, Stake, the online gambling company, the Gambling Ghouls. And I just sort of wanted to share some of these thoughts with you. This is kind of a goofy video, it's not going to be my most significant work. Actually, at my job, it's been really busy lately, so I haven't had the time to properly process this Chance the Rapper album. I'm basically trying to buy myself an extra day before I do that, so I can think about it some more. But let's just talk about this Drake versus Stake thing, because it's another battle. It's another high-profile conflict from Drake, but it's not like the other ones. Now, obviously, it's not like Kendrick versus Drake, which fundamentally comes down to, at least as I see it, good versus evil, good guy versus bad guy, Drake playing the bad guy, someone who's reducing a black American cultural product to a crass piece of merchandising, trying to make it devoid of all meaning or social context, that whole thing. But it's also not exactly the same thing as his lawsuit versus UMG. Even though UMG are also villains, I'd say that's kind of bad guy. But this is a whole nother level. Him attacking Stake is a whole nother level. Because, Stake is unquestionably the bad guys, right? The unbelievably evil corporation of gambling goons who benefit from this lack of regulation, who attack people's lizard brains, who are able to get them to gamble on their phone, gamble on their computer. Gambling addicts on average lose around $20,000 a year. Okay, so this is a very predatory, extremely predatory, deleterious company that is furthering the wealth gap and is particularly targeting the working and middle and lower class, because they're the ones who have the least to lose, who can lose it the most, right? And again, I'm not letting UMG off the hook. At the end of this video, I will tackle UMG as well, all right? But what I thought would be fun would be just to talk about this bad guy versus bad guy as being like a villain versus villain movie. There is something fun about it when bad guys go after bad guys. I actually learned about this whole thing from watching Screwface Jean. Shout out to Jean. Drop the song, Jean. We all want to hear it. He was reacting to Chigs Smooth's video about this, and the underlying theme was just kind of like, this is fun to watch these two malignant forces going after each other. And I'm there with that. And then what I want to do is I want to try to compare this to sort of other pop culture villain versus villain. The kind of thing where you say, whoever wins, we lose. I think about the Freddy versus Jason movie, which was not as disappointing as it could be. That's my highest praise for it. And what's funny about Freddy versus Jason is, you have these two murderers, but what ends up happening is when you have a villain versus a villain, you always root for one of them. And I don't know how, I don't know why, but that's what happens. Like our brains, we have to find a good guy and a bad guy. So why do we root for Jason? We root for Jason because Freddy, even though he's a part of a better franchise, he enjoys killing too much. He is too sadistic. He is too creative. He is too horrific. Whereas Jason is just purely a creature of thoughtless murder. And that somehow makes him more likable to us as an audience. What's funny is that is the opposite of how we root for people in the movie Alien vs. Predator, which was extremely disappointing. The comics were quite better. But anyways, while you root for Jason because he is purely just a mindless murder machine, you root against the aliens because they are mindless murder machines. You end up rooting for the Predator because he has a code. He has, say what you will about the tenets of predatorism, but at least there's an ethos, He has some kind of belief system, and that makes him seem more reasonable, makes him seem more controllable, makes him seem more relatable, and so that's how it ends up feeling. So my question while driving home, barreling along the 490, was, is Drake versus Stake Alien versus Predator? Whoever wins, we lose. That's where that tagline comes from. And it's not. It's not Alien versus Predator. It's Alien versus Burke. Thank you for auditing the Always Positive New Music Review Show, hosted by a French professor who knows that probably most of you don't get that reference, so I'm going to explain it. If you do get that reference, are you thinking I'm so damn clever? So let me explain, all right? Burke is a character played by Paul Reiser, the comedian, in the movie Aliens from 1986, one of the best sequels of all time, directed by James Cameron. The plot of the movie is thusly, this is the plot of the movie. I gotta stop talking too fancifully. Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver, is asked to accompany a bunch of space marines to go to the planet LV-426, where a bunch of people who live there, settlers, colonists, have been infiltrated, invaded by, and probably murdered by a bunch of the xenomorphs, the aliens of the title of the franchise, right? These amazing killing machines. So she is sent with the Marines to save them. The problem is, that's not their mission. They just don't know it. They're sent by the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, the big evil corporation of this whole story. And their representative during this whole event is actually Burke. That's who he is. And he's this kind of like smarmy, sort of nice, kind of affable, but ultimately just snaky corporate guy. And he is so villainous. We discover, spoilers, we discover that he actually made the colonists find the nest of the eggs. He started off this whole thing. He tries to kill Ripley and a 10-year-old girl by having them infested by the facehuggers. All right, that's how bad Burke is. There's a famous line from the movie where Sigourney Weaver's character says to Burke, "You know, Burke, I don't know which species is worse. You don't see them fucking each other over for a goddamn percentage." Awesome line. It's so bad that when we watch Aliens, we end up rooting for the alien, because that's how unlikable Burke is. We are clapping for the alien. When he escapes from the Marines and hides behind a door, and we see that giant penis head with the penis head inside of it come out and try and kill him and open up his jaws, we all clap. And why is that? Because we recognize the kind of evil that Burke is. It's a different kind of evil than the alien. He worked with the aliens. He was working for the evil force to hurt people in order to increase his own profits. Do you see where I am going with this? Drake is the Burke of steak. His job is fighting for this company. He gets paid $100 million a year to increase their power, to increase their force, to increase their reach. I consider online gambling to be a threat on par with the aliens, okay? Very insidious and clever and crafty and very difficult to get rid of and absolutely everywhere and absolutely devastating. And for years now, that has been Drake's primary contribution to planet Earth, has been working for steak, has been being the Burke, being the man working for the company, making sure that it does as much damage as it can possibly do. Hurt the most people to make the most money. That is why no matter what Drake does in music or art or whatever, he cannot be let off the hook. For he is the number one gambling groomer. That's the term I want to get off the ground. Okay? Gambling groomer. Somebody who makes a life of gambling addiction, who makes a life of staring blankly at a screen for hours and just losing all the money that you have earned, who makes that seem effective, makes that seem kind of cool, makes it seem kind of fun, create a sort of fun environment, and you can be just like your big rap hero, and you can just do this, you can be that cool, and you can use all these cool words and be all neat and have a hookah and drink all this alcohol. He is the number one gambling groomer. He is bringing people to ruin. So that's what he did, right? He traded in his status as an artist to be that of a gambling groomer. And what's fascinating is he's not like the only one, which ties into this whole Drake versus Steak battle that could be happening. Who knows? This might be a one-off where he just got mad once, or it could be a real shift. But like, what does it mean that he is now a gambling groomer more than he is an artist? Well, I think about I can't really call it a feud. But I made a video where I criticized XQC for saying that rap lyrics should not have meaning. And in his response to me, he explained to me, through the camera, he said, listen, I'm not supposed to understand music. I'm not supposed to care about lyrics. I consume, bro. That's what he said. I consume, bro. And that's what made me realize that's the difference. An artist creates, a consumer consumes. XQC and the ethos that he represents, which is also represented by Drake every time he gets in front of the damn screen, is that this is the proper interaction. You have money and you just spend it. You don't even buy anything. It is a perfect consumer interaction for the company. You spend money and you get nothing. I've been watching, and I get obsessed. And every couple months, I will watch one of these couple-hour-long streams with Drake and Aiden Ross. Or I watched one recently that was from 10 days ago of Aiden Ross, XQC, Trainwreck, who we'll get to in a second, and Drake. And just the amount of just dead-eyed staring that they do. And all the weird little lingo that they come up with. And they have all these weird conversations, and they get sort of like, it always ends up being something weirdly like sexual and like super adolescent and just, but at the end, it's just all about clicking on a mouse. That's all it's about. It's just about clicking on a mouse the whole time and just consuming. I consume, bro. Well, the real thing that consumes is steak. The real thing that consumes is aliens, okay? Is the malignant evil force that has no end to its appetite. So anyways, if you haven't actually seen what happened was Trainwreck, who is one of these gambling groomers, right? He's one of the people who has helped to popularize and mainstream gambling for children, okay? Here's a sentence that is true. Children are being marketed to by online gambling companies by adult men. How is our civilization going, huh? At least we can't advertise cigarettes on TV. Come on. This is backwards progress. So on this stream, Trainwreck starts to complain about how he has not properly been treated by the two people who run Stake. Eddie Craven and Bijan something or other, all right? And so while this is happening, Drake jumps on and just starts going after the people who run Stake. I mean, really, really attacking them. Now, I assume he was drunk, but whatever. And I just want to like break down what he's written here, okay? I actually did a little bit of production here, so we're going to take a look at the writing here, all right? Let's actually take a look at what was said in this stream. Okay, one second. I gotta somehow get my screen up here. All right. So here are all of Drake's words, right? Okay, so you have a picture of Eddie and says Snake. Eddie's been dissing the Owls. I don't know. F this goof. W's for my brother Train tonight. Only W's. If Steak is the Warriors, I am Steph Curry. We win chips, right? Championships. How many years the owners get rich as F and make us run suicides after practice still, eat granola bars for meals, and take the Greyhound bus to games. F and Goofinos. Now here's an interesting point, right? I believe him on this. I believe that he is being mistreated by these ghouls. Absolutely. The rules of extreme free market capitalism spare no one. Everyone will be exploited for their labor. It doesn't matter who it is. But still, what you winning, Drake? What's the prize? We'll get to that in a second. And then he goes on and on about these little details with like celebrities they're with. And he calls this guy Trainwreck Jordan, and he's Steph. I mean, he's really going off. I love the term Goofinos, by the way. Props to Drake. I like Goofinos. That's good. And then at the end, this is the most important part, down here at 1:18 a.m., where he says, we built this shit. and they treat us like shit still. That's what I want to focus on, because that's what I think is the most interesting perspective that Drake puts forth. We built this shit. What, Sway? What did you build, Drake? What did you build? You built destruction. You built death. You built depletion of wealth. You built wealth gap. You built wealth for the tiniest possible percentage of people above you. You didn't build anything. Now listen, as a musician and an artist, he absolutely built a ton of stuff. You cannot take anything away from whatever OVO is or whatever his amazing success is. You know, you can't. You can't take away from his success as an artist. It's incredible. I don't care how he got there. It's incredible. That is an amazing thing which any human being should be proud of. But building steak is shame. That's like, you know, you are literally building, you are proud of building such unbelievable misery. You are serving the murderous evil force. And now you have your plaid shirt on and your douchey little tan vest, and you're running away and you're closing the door. And you turn around and you hear and you see the jaws open, and then what do you hear? On the other side of the screen, everybody's clapping. Because I don't know which species is worse. You don't see them fucking each other over for a share. I don't know. I almost want to quote Ozymandias, the poem by Shelley, you know, because the way that he talks so proudly about building something. Ozymandias is this poem about a couple of travelers who fall across this statue, and all that's left is just the legs of the statue. And at the bottom of the statue, it says, "My name is Ozymandias, king of kings. Look on my works, ye mighty in despair. No thing beside remains round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away." So like whatever he had built in a long time ago, whatever his great power was, it's all been completely eroded. And that's how this feels. We built this shit. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. I did say I would bring in UMG. Because listen, UMG is definitely an evil company, just like any other big evil company, you know. That's sort of they're evil by design of the free market capitalist system, which encourages a certain amount of attitudes and behaviors which I think go against most people's moral values. But I would say UMG in this little metaphor, if we were to have, like, you know, is it Aliens versus Predator? I don't think so. But I think Drake versus UMG is like Burke versus Weyland-Yutani. You know, if Burke somehow survived and then he decided to sue Weyland-Yutani. Like you knew what you were working for, you knew who paid your checks, you knew the mission, and now all of a sudden it doesn't work out for you, so you're going to sue the great big evil company. As a final word of hope, how can Drake become the good guy? How could he become the good guy? Now, I'm not talking musically, okay? I don't know. You know, that's not really for me to say. I mean, obviously, I'll say it from time to time. But in this whole story, if he actually abandoned stake, if he actually went out against online gambling, if he became an actual force fighting against this nefarious and insidious conversion of mostly young men to gambling addicts, I'd give him his flowers. I'll tell you what, I'll make a whole video. If he actually goes out against stake, if he stops cashing in the checks, if he stops trying to glamorize this dangerous behavior, I will call him the Predator. Okay? Shit, I don't mean like that. I mean like in the Alien versus Predator thing. You get my whole point. All right. Anyways, this was a goof, like I said, man. I didn't hate The Big Day. Check the record. I said The Big Day was a good album, so I'm excited. I think Starline obviously is an amazing album. So I'm gonna get back to thinking about that. No longer thinking about Aliens. Oh, by the way, we are watching. I just finished rewatching Aliens the day before yesterday with my wife. You know, we're rewatching, so that's why this is all in my head. And we're also watching the Alien Earth show. And my quick review of that is there's too much happening and not enough. but it's good. I'm enjoying it. All right, till next time. There's the camera.